Let's learn how to make buttercream the Pastelita way. We're going to start off with equal parts unsalted butter and shortening. It's really important that the butter is at the right temperature, so you really want it to be about this soft. If your butter's cold, you could throw it in the microwave for 10 seconds at a time. Just keep an eye on it. Here I'm using a brand called Sweet, but Crisco works just fine. I typically go with the paddle attachment over the whisk. When I started baking, I used to use the whisk attachment, but I find that it puts way too much air in my buttercream, so girl, just believe me, use a paddle. We're gonna add 2 tablespoons of vanilla, and then we're gonna let it mix on medium speed. While that mixes, we're gonna sift our powdered sugar, which is really important. This step used to annoy me, but it's actually really important for a smooth buttercream. I tend to go back and forth instead of all the way around because, as you can see, it jumps. It just makes more of a mess to clean up, and this is actually something somebody on my TikTok live showed me, so I can't even take credit for this. Now, girl, let me show you why it's so important to sift that powdered sugar. You see all those little lumps? That would be inside your frosting if you didn't take all of that out. So now we're gonna make sure that we come back in and we're gonna scrape the bowl. This is kind of like a pet peeve of mine. I scrape my bowl a lot during the process, and this is why. You see how it's all lumpy right here? If you don't get this incorporated in these stages, then at the end when you're icing your cake, you're gonna find big clumps of butter, and it's literally gonna drive you insane. So once you see your Crisco and butter mixture is nice and smooth, you can go ahead and start adding your sifted powdered sugar, just a little bit at a time. We're gonna start with 3 cups, and we're just gonna let that mix in and incorporate well before adding your meringue powder. I like to use meringue powder in my recipe because I like that it makes my buttercream feel a little bit stiffer, especially here in Vegas where it's so hot. You can use all the help you can get. And I'm so serious, look at the rim of this bowl right now. Don't forget to scrape the sides, guys. I let the first half of ingredients mix for about 7 minutes, and then I add the remaining powdered sugar to my buttercream. I remember being so frustrated when I first started baking and feeling like I could never get my buttercream right, and it really is one of the first things we learn as bakers, and I wanted to definitely come back and share the tips and tricks that I have figured out over time on how to make my buttercream the best buttercream version. I'm sure even as I continue to learn things, I'm gonna figure out better ways to make this, but as of now, I think that this buttercream is amazing. I am so happy that everybody on TikTok has been asking me to share it so much, and honestly, I decided to make my first video on it because it wasn't that long ago that I was trying to figure out how to perfect buttercream. Here is where I think most of us are going wrong with our buttercream. We'll let it mix for just a few minutes, we'll see it well combined, and we think, okay, it's perfect. But if you look at it really closely, it actually still has a lot of air bubbles in it, and it's very yellow. So you could use it at this point, but you might find little chunks of butter like this. And honestly, I just can't stand that. So what I like to do is make sure that I whip my buttercream a lot longer than I've seen other recipes. And another reason is because look at this. It's just, even though it's nice, there's still some clumps from the bottom, and I find that unless I'm mixing my buttercream for almost like 30 minutes, it's just not having that smooth texture. So I'm gonna go ahead and put it back on a medium speed and give it like another 10 minutes. Once I notice that my buttercream is looking nice and white, I like to just give it a little mix with my hand. I know it's silly because you've been mixing it for so long, but something about it really does take those last little air bubbles out of it. And that is how I get this beautiful buttercream. I hope you guys use it, and if you do, please tag me on Instagram. I would love to see.